on government property. So that the postage stamp piece of land would mean maybe they could have the cross, but they can't have the logo on it.
Right, okay.
But the case law is that selling the postage stamp piece of land doesn't work either, because it's a charade. And the courts have said, you know, it's clear what you're doing.
But even if that goes through, it's basically, either way they have to take the UHP symbol out.
Right, and it's kind of like, gee, Mr. Wimmer, you're really clever.
Right.
You're still violating the Constitution.
Right.
I don't think anyone's ever called Carlton clever.
Well, gee, Mr. Wimmer, you sure think you're clever.
By the standards of the people who elected.
Yeah. Anyway, if you know, he's come up with that, and you know, I can imagine them trying to be clever, but probably ain't gonna work.
Well, they're obviously trying to be clever if they're trying to do the postage stamp piece of land or whatever it is.
So, but you know,
well, if we just take the crossbeam off.
Well,
taking
the cross.
I keep saying, put up an obelisk. Nobody's gonna care.
Right. I get longer, make it a blue.
So anyway, that's the end of that's the end of that's the end of what I've got to say. Do people got questions? You in the back.
No.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, someone who is not an atheist apparently.
The reason I am. The thing is because I have followed you guys for a while, and I found out that my father's been a highway patrolman for 27 years. And the biggest question I had is, I think we should remember that these are troopers that died in the line of duty during accidents and car crashes, so we should be respectful, even though the symbol obviously isn't. The other thing is, with all these different things, why was it necessarily the state and not the Utah Highway Patrol Association? It was like, why are they getting it with the bill, and why was the case against the state versus the UHPA? And I'm not a lawyer. I know insurance, but I don't know law, so I don't know.
The UHPA did not violate the Constitution in any way.
So it's just because the crosses were on government-owned land, and that's why the states have...
Right.
Okay, that makes sense.
The only government entities can violate the Constitution. Private entities cannot violate the Constitution. So it was the state allowing UHPA to use the logo that violated it, and the state allowing UHPA to put the crosses on the government property to violate it. And you're absolutely right, and I've said consistently, these troopers should be honored, but not with this. Not with this criticism.
I remember there was a big discussion on the Skeptics Guide about whether we should put a cross up on Jewish gravesites, and this is where it pretty much led to. And that's what I was curious if they had shown an alternative for the cross in any of the hearings or anything you had seen.
Well, the cross in Harley's Canyon, when you're coming down Harley's Canyon, there's a flag. There's an American flag there next to it. That's one of the symbols that could be used. Putting up a shield, putting up their badge.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
That's another one. The obelisk, which is the shape of the Washington Monument. That's a symbol that's been used for a long time to mark a place of honor and respect. Those kinds of symbols. The state capitol has a memorial for law enforcement officers that it is a monument that doesn't have any religious markers. But one of the things that's happened with it is one of the people that designed this is Robert Kirby, and from the very get-go, he and a couple of other people just said, we won't consider any other symbol. This is the symbol we want. We won't consider anything else. And when we filed the lawsuit, we approached UHPA and said, still litigating this, can we talk about some other symbols?
Yeah, you can turn the sound on.
Yeah. And they said, he doesn't know how.
Pass it over, let's turn that on.
And they wouldn't come up with any other thing.
Well, that's good. Well, I know we get the magazines at my dad's house, and so I've been, every once in a while there's a little column or something about this while it's been going on. So I gotta say, now that I'm no longer Mormon when this started, and atheist now that it's ended, congratulations.
Yes, sir.
So now that it's over, the state won't entertain the thought of changing the symbol. They're
Well,
gonna, instead their solution is to sell this 3x3 foot section of land.
That's
make it
what,
private.
that's what Carl Wimmer said to do. He's running for office, he's pandering to people. Hopefully they won't. Hopefully they'll say, let's move them to private property, let's change the shape, let's do something different. You know, it doesn't make sense to run up a bunch more attorney's fees. It doesn't make sense to continue this way.
Absolutely.
Well,
Yes, sir.
either does.
In the brown shirt, you,
I have a two-part question. Does the refusal to certify the case, was that with or without prejudice? And given that the canons of statutory construction do not include the principle of estoppel, who else is bound by the 10th Circuit Court's decisions? Because that's not a national decision, it's a circuit court decision.
right. The decision by the Supreme Court, they simply say cert denied. They don't tell us why. And it cannot go up there again. They can't have, the UHPA and the state of Utah can't have.
So by implications with prejudice?
Right.
Okay.
And the decision by the 10th Circuit is binding on the 6 states that make up the 10th Circuit. But it is persuasive authority for the rest of the country.
But they're not bound by it?
They're not bound by it. Meaning that a court in California will look at the decision by the 10th Circuit and will say, yeah, that the reasoning in it makes sense, we'll follow it, or the reasoning doesn't make sense, we won't follow it.
The Ninth Circuit has a similar decision.
Right. Yes, sir.
Have there been other cases like this across the country, and if so, what were the decisions?
In my research, I was not able to find any other similar memorial program. Most law enforcement agencies have some sort of memorial programs for law enforcement officers or firefighters or whatever who have lost their lives in the line of duty. I was not able to find any other program like this with giant crosses. And there's been no programs like this that I could find, and no similar litigation like this.
Didn't they have them in Idaho? I remember growing up on our trips to Montana, we would see them in parts of the canyon where civilians had passed away.
Right. Now, there are some programs like that, and one of the groups that filed an amicus brief was mad, the Mothers Against Drunk Driving, because in some states they're allowed to put up little crosses where there's been drunk driving accidents or drunk driving fatalities. But those are the 2-foot tall crosses. So in some states, those are put up. But the states allow those, and they have certain restrictions on them. But they're not government sanctioned. They don't have government logos on them and that. Yes?
Do they have a time frame into which they have to take care of this?
There isn't a time frame. What the court essentially says is reasonable. So, we're going to assume that they're going to follow the decision. They're going to act in a reasonable period of time. If they don't act with some dispatch, then I can start some enforcement proceedings. But I'm going to assume that they're honorable people and people are supposed to. Yes?
How do you define the reasonable amount of time? It's going to take a while for the paperwork to get from the Supreme Court to the 10th Circuit to get here, that kind of stuff. So it'll be a while. It won't be tomorrow.
How long is a reasonable time till they start paying you for attorney's fees?
Yeah, well, my staff would like a Christmas bonus. We do celebrate Christmas bonuses. Over here. All right, the questions are coming from the left. Yes, sir.
In posting and reading comments online about this, I've seen quite a few people make the suggestion that they should just cut off the top section of the cross, or even one of the sides, and then they would be fine.
Well, and doing research on this thing too, nobody knows what shape, nobody knows if there was a Christ and if he was crucified, and nobody knows what kind of torture instrument was used to crucify that person. And some people suggest that it wasn't a T or that shape. And, and cut it off and make it into a T for trooper, make it into whatever. And there's been suggestions repeatedly that in Arlington National Cemetery there's row upon row of crosses. There's not. Those row upon row of crosses are in the United States military cemeteries in Europe. They have row upon row of crosses, so like in Normandy. But if you look closely at the pictures, and they're online, you'll see, you'll see cross, cross, cross. You'll see a stick, the Star of David. And maybe that's the marker that could be used. You have a stick, and on the top of that stick you have the shield, the badge, the Highway Patrol badge. People would see that and would know that represents a Highway Patrol trooper's death. That might be the appropriate.
Well, I guess my concern was just that, they've said, well, all you have to do is cut the top off. And
well, that's fine. It's no
but they don't want to do that because they want the cross.
Yeah.
Right.
Because it's not religious.
Right, the cross is an entirely secular symbol. That's all right.
Well,
I know I wear one right now, right?
the group that's providing free legal assistance to the Highway Patrol Association is called the Alliance Defense Fund. You go on their website, they say we're a religious rights organization and Christ is on our side. And we do all our religious rights.
So basically they're ACLJ, but just for like Western states.
Right. And then it's kind of like, okay, well then, how can you say this isn't a religious symbol? Right. It's kind of like, what's going on?
I'll donate to Jesus said so. We'll take the tops off.
Yes.
Well, we'll take the tops off.
I'm curious about two things. One, we're sort of hinting around here is, in a state where, would you say 60% of the people are not Christians? What does that try to use the religious symbol of the Christianity to portray? I'm curious what your research, if anything, you might have found to suggest why they would choose that symbol if it's, I mean, the other part of the question is the people that they're supposedly, the fallen state troopers, were they all Christians? Do we know what their religions were? If they were the ones that we honored?
Well, and that was an interesting predicament that we ran into in the litigation, because the state of Utah took the position that these crosses were not religious and did not reflect the religion of the trooper. The state said these are memorials and they are a generic symbol of death and honor. And no other symbol can be put up, only the cross. And then the Highway Patrol Association and the Alliance Defense Fund said these crosses represent a choice by the family of the deceased. And if the family of the deceased was Jewish and they wanted a Star of David, the Highway Patrol Association would put up the Star of David because they were religious, representing the faith of the trooper. And the state of Utah said, wait a minute. And so that was noted by the 10th Circuit. Because if in fact it is religious, that strengthens our argument. And it was like, wait a minute, the state of Utah and Highway Patrol Association, aren't you reading the same playbook? And they ended, and I just sat there and said, great, I'll watch this cat fight.